sinners, it is time to repent again. Today we're talking about Blasphemous 2, developed by the Game Kitchen and released on August 24th, 2023. Oh, but Avery, why are you reviewing Blasphemous 2? You skipped the first game. So I've played the first Blasphemous, and man, I did not enjoy that game. I know these games kind of live in the world of you either love the first one and hate the second, or vice versa. Well, unfortunately, I kind of live in the latter. I just did not enjoy the first Blasphemous game at all. And instead of playing a game that I know I don't like and making a review where I'm just dogging on the game the whole time, I decided I would play a game that I actually like and give you guys a positive review. So here we are with Blasphemous 2. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the review. Blasphemous 2 is a brutally punishing game, although not quite as much as the first one. Just look for the death spikes if you don't believe me. In this game, you play as the Penitent One. Now I'll give a quick summary of the story of the game from my understanding, so I guess we'll go ahead and talk about story at the beginning of the video rather than the end. Again, this is my understanding of the story, so take it with a grain of salt. I could very well be wrong about pretty much everything I'm going to say. But basically, there is this godlike being called the Miracle. And after the events of the first game, the Miracle is kind of a afterthought now. It's not really worshipped anymore, it's not really thought of anymore, and it kind of just fades out of existence. Well, in the second game, there's this couple that is so desperately trying to have a child, and they are failing. So then they start praying to this old, long-forgotten religion, the Miracle. Doing this kind of brings the Miracle back into the fold. And because the prayers from this couple are so faithful and have pure intention, the Miracle grants them their wish of a child. But because the Miracle is, well, not a great thing, the child that's born is the Miracle trying to manifest itself into this world. And this caused something called the Plague of Afflictions. This plague spread across the land called Custodia and turned numerous people into monsters. The Miracle, attempting to correct its mistake, decided it was going to try again to bring itself into the world as a physical manifestation. This is the giant heart that's in the sky when they say that a child is going to be born. But of course, things are already so out of hand that a child being born, i.e. the Miracle, could really spell certain disaster for the land. And that's where we come in. The Penitent One is reawakened, and it is now our job to prevent that child from being born. But in our way is Evaterno, the first of the penitents, and his arch confraternity of penitents. So that's kind of my general understanding of the story. It's really interesting to me. It's very complex, so it's a little difficult to keep up with. Not that I'm very good at doing that to begin with, but I could actually see myself sitting down and watching a 3-hour video of the lore of this game. I know it leans heavily into Spanish Catholic motifs as well, and that's really interesting, although that leads to some of the very grotesque parts of this game. If you have a weak stomach, I'm not sure if I would recommend you play this game. There are some really off-putting characters in this game. Watch the trailers, you'll be able to know pretty quickly if you can handle it or not. Anyway, let's move on to the combat. Now, the combat in this game is a really fun time. At the start of the game, you get to choose one out of 3 weapons. But don't worry, you can and you will find the other 2 throughout the game. One of the weapons is a giant hammer on a chain, like a flail type thing. The other is your medium-range sword, and the last is your short-range dual swords. With both of the swords, you can adopt a parry playstyle. With the flail, not so much. All of these weapons are used in platforming puzzles as well, as they all do different things, which is a really neat addition to the game. I will also recommend learning each of their playstyles, as some enemies and bosses are easier dealt with one and not the others. Now, I especially like the short-range dual swords. If you get a perfect parry with them, you get a kind of thrusting dash attack, and that fills up your lightning meter. And your weapons are imbued with lightning damage as long as you don't take any damage. And the lightning damage in this game is kind of broken. It does a ton of damage. The only downside of those weapons is, like I said, they're pretty short range. And secondly, you can't do an aerial straight up attack. You kind of attack at an upward angle. Another component of the combat in this game is your prayers and your chants. Basically, these are small or large spells that can buff yourself, do damage to enemies, and they use your fervor bar, which is the blue bar under your health. These can aid in many combat situations, especially boss fights. Unfortunately, I found myself not remembering to use them very often, but I will say, when you get Debla, and you'll know when you get Debla, you'll want to use that prayer pretty much on cooldown. One thing to look out for is your guilt. See, when you die, you get these kind of thorns on your fervor bar, which limit the maximum amount of fervor you can have. You get rid of this by going to where you died and picking up your guilt. However, if you die too many times, picking up your guilt no longer removes the thorns. In this case, you need to go to the confessor in the main city, pay him some money, and then you get your full fervor bar back. So basically, just don't die. In this game, you will get altar pieces. These are items that you can equip that act as active buffs. All of the altar pieces do different things. However, there is a synergistic relationship between some of them when you put them in the same slot. Now, as you can tell this far, we're obviously back in our 2D pixel art metroidvanias, but we did take a break for this. Recently, I did a video review on Death's Door, and then separately, I did a boss ranking video for Death's Door. Make sure you go check those out if you want to break from the pixel art metroidvanias. I'll link one right here, and the links for both of them will be in the description. Make sure you like and subscribe while you're over there. Now, back to Blasphemous. Let's talk about the world, the level design, and the exploration of Blasphemous 2. The world of this game is massive. Seriously, this is one of the longer Metroidvania metroidvanias that I've played. Getting the Steam limit on this game took me a little over 20 hours, which might not be a lot for some people, but it's a lot for a lot of the games that I've played recently. But the world, although extremely large, never really feels overwhelming. You kind of just get consumed in everything because the pixel art is so beautiful in this game. Now, I'm not usually one of those guys that's going to talk about the atmosphere of video games, but Blasphemous 2 really nails that part. The exploration in this game is also extremely rewarding. There are so many collectibles in this game that you are just bound to find something everywhere you go. Usually getting lost in a video game is something that bothers me, but it's not the case in this game. You very much get rewarded for your time. Now, let's talk about the bosses of Blasphemous 2. Blasphemous 2 has some incredibly high highs and some very low lows. The bosses in this game usually have a handful of mechanics that you obviously gotta look out for. I usually look to parry most bosses if that's an option, and it is on a lot of bosses. However, you are gonna have to dodge a lot of the moves that are thrown at you. Some of the bosses can be extremely tough in this game too. The main two bosses I struggled with were Benedicta and Susona. I really liked one of these and I really hated the other one. I've got a boss ranking video for this game coming out after this one. Make sure you stay tuned for that so you can figure out which one is which. Now, while I struggled on those two heavily, I blasted through a lot of the bosses in this game. Most of them did not take me more than 3 or 4 attempts. All in all, this game has some very incredible boss fights, and one of them would actually rank in probably my top 15 bosses of all time. However, this will all be discussed at length in my next video, where I will include the DLC bosses. Lastly, you know we gotta talk about the soundtrack. Carlos Viola, you absolute musical genius. This is one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time. It's up there with Hollow Knight soundtrack and Death's Door soundtrack for me. This is another one where I was listening to the soundtrack the entire time I was writing the script for this video and for the next video. The soundtrack also does an incredible job at setting the theme for each of the zones that you're in, especially the song, and I'm gonna butcher this because I'm as white as they come.
He said what?
Entre Espinos. The song is so eerie that it's almost hard to listen to, but it fits so well when you step foot into the Crown of Thorns area or the Green Foresty area. You'll know what I'm talking about when you get there. Again, the soundtrack is incredible. Go check out Carlos Viola on Spotify or wherever you listen to music. All right, now it's time for the score reveal of Blasphemous 2. Blasphemous 2 is gonna get a 9.5 out of 10. This game just sticks with me. It's not often that I beat a game and then it stays in my brain for the next few days. But this one definitely did. Everything from the level design to the combat to the bosses, the story, the soundtrack, and just the overall general feel of the game is just so well designed. It's not getting a perfect 10 out of 10 for me just because there are certainly some bosses in this game that I really dislike. Stay tuned for the next video for more details on that, but that is really the only thing that's preventing it from getting the 10. If you like what I do, please consider liking and subscribing. Also, leave a comment down below. Have you played this game? What'd you think about it? Let me know down in the comments. And be sure to check me out on Twitch and TikTok, where we're going to be streaming these games for the reviews. I'd love to see some of my viewers over here hop in the chat over there. Come hang out. But as always, that's it for me. Stay safe out there. Peace.